I come from Sweden, Stockholm.
Well, I'm from Tucson, Arizona.
I'm from Réunion Island. It's a French island anyway, it's far away. And
I am from this very little town surrounded by villages in North Thuringia.
Well, I come from Berlin and I live here in Leipzig since October. A human being.
I'm kind of a super liberal hippie, I guess. I don't really know how to describe myself exactly. I like linguistics and traveling and languages and yoga, rock climbing.
Passionate, maybe. Easily upset about things. And nerdy. And my parents would say, Alicia, you like to party too much. So it's a mix.
The place where I come from is like really small and pretty narrow-minded, and I wanted to escape there since my puberty, and I've been more or less living in Leipzig since then. And for me personally, it was a big freedom to escape.
Lesbian Leipzig. Yeah.
Well, I don't really identify as anything in particular, like a lesbian or straight or bi. I identify as being fluid. So I guess in that way it sort of influenced my identity, because I also think of my gender more as being fluid.
Yeah. I'm always proclaiming to be a lesbian.
I cannot really say how, but it's a big part of my identity, I would say. As well as for someone who's hetero, it's a big part of their identity as well. People who are hetero, they tend to think, or a lot of my friends at least, they're like, it's not a big deal what you have as a sexual orientation. But it's just when you are a majority, it's not a big deal. But as soon as you're the minority, you start, it's more like, it becomes more important for me at least.
I guess so. I guess that there is a worldwide lesbian culture. It's more or less coming from the US, of course. Lesbian culture for me is not only movies or TV series. There once has been a lesbian culture which I felt comfortable in when I was a bit younger, but not anymore, because this whole dancing to mainstream pop song things doesn't work for me anymore. And I think especially the lesbian culture here in Leipzig, which I like a lot, is more like this queer culture.
If you're interested, you will find it. And here in Leipzig is like a lesbian city. So here the culture is very lesbian, which is awesome.
I mean, in a sense, because I think it's important that everybody feels free to do what he wants, and I think the LGBT community expresses that in a lot of ways, and that's important.
Yes, I was part of associations, LGBT association in Paris, but the thing I found a little bit complicated was because the majority are white, and like they come from a certain upper middle classes, I would say, and also there is not so much place for female like to speak. It's almost always gay people and male who speaks much more than the lesbian and trans, and I don't know, like there is not equality even in the LGBT association.
Of course, just because in a lot of countries gay people can get married doesn't really mean anything. It's like when women were allowed to vote, it's not like women's rights. It's like, okay, you know, it's all good now. I guess the biggest problem is for trans individuals because they're being killed in numbers like never before. So I think that's really the biggest fight right now, is trans visibility and stopping the violence.
The thing is that especially nowadays in Germany and also in Saxony, the problem is that with this whole political right-wing movement which is going on, I feel really, really scared that it will influence my personal lesbian life at some point, that I can't live freely because they've got these weird ideas on how a human should work or a family should work.
Do you want to hear my coming out story? It's a funny story. Unfortunately, it's a story. I would have liked it not to be a thing, but I was pretty old when I realized. I fell in love with a woman and wrote like a super dramatic email to all of my family members. And all of them thought that I had cancer or something because I started like, oh, this is very blah blah blah. But they were all super nice and they all called me and like, stop scaring us so much. We thought you had cancer, Alicia.
I was 8 and I was just kind of, well, there was a girl who was my girlfriend and I also had a boyfriend at the time. Yeah, I've always been a little ahead of my time. And I was just talking about being bi, and my girlfriend's grandma was Mormon and was very upset by it and complained to the school. And so they called my mom, who was a middle school teacher at the time, and they told her that there has been complaints from parents that I have been telling the other children that I'm bisexual, as if I'd been doing something horrible and inappropriate. And the counselor actually took me out of the classroom, which made me feel like I was in trouble. And then when she told me that, I felt really mad. Like, why am I getting in trouble for saying that I'm bi? Like, it didn't make any sense to me. And she even asked me if I knew what that meant, really condescendingly. And I remember telling her very proudly, because I'd been watching Will and Grace for a long time and talking to my mom a lot about gay things. I was like, being bi means that you're sexually attracted to men and women.
There are also so many, also only by straight people, mostly men.
Maybe if I fuck a girl with a strap on.
I've been asked by a man if he could join, which is also a very, very bad question. Because it's like this, okay, you actually need a dick.
Yeah, so like what percentage of people do you sleep with? Like, is it like 50% guys, 30% girls?
Fuck off. I don't ask you. It's not so good. It's not so good. Like, I mean, this French film that everybody knows, the blue is the warmest color.
A lot of times pornography, or just wanting, like being a girl in the wrong body somehow.
Yeah, well, I mean, according to the patriarchy, women are obviously less than men. And so a woman who doesn't even feel like she needs a man is quite threatening to the patriarchy.
No. I would say it's better. Because you suddenly stand out of the patriarchy. You're not longer a part of it. Maybe it's controversial to say, of course we're also the part of it, but I've never been happier. It sounds like an advertisement for being lesbian, but yes.